That's pretty cool. Oh, fantastic. Okay, hold on. I was doing some research about inflation and all these prices and everything, and a lot of great discussions are happening with the markets and people actually waking up. Stories, so many stories now, more than what we talked about before about people going to coin shops and coin shops either running out of bullion or even online auctions where they're selling, pretty stuff like this. Not so much bullion, but stuff like this. Hey, Rob. And even this one. Thought that was pretty. It's a painted kookaburra. But yeah, I'm hearing more stories about stores being busy and even some of their thoughts and outlooks at where they think prices are going to be now and going into later of the year. It really depends on the COMEX. Paper contracts leading the way, which a lot of them never thought that it would, and it has. So it's really put a spread. You have prices for physical silver, like, let's see here. Like it's Britannia, for example. An ounce of silver is going for $130 in Japan, and it's going for more in China. And here it's still in the low 70s. So you have this almost, we're talking like a $60 gap difference here. Unrealistic. And at some point that has to narrow. This has to tighten because it's just unnaturally widened. That's so pretty. I've never been into dragons. I want to say probably the last year. I think they kind of just found me. But anyways, I found this really cool video on YouTube from 1980, and it's called Watch Fight Back, and it's David Horowitz, this host who will go over products and see if it works and doesn't work. Market open, 74.16, moving up already. All right. Yeah, SC Billion's at 74.97. It's happening. I remember watching it back in the day. Really? All right, so let me go back over here. This is just fascinating. What everything costs. I mean, I thought it was interesting whenever we watch Home Alone and Kevin's at this grocery store with a $20 bill and he's getting laundry detergent and fabric softener and milk and Kraft macaroni and cheese and other foods. He's got 4 plastic bags walking down the street, and it comes to $19.83 for the total. And as a kid, it goes over your head, but as an adult, you're wondering, what is the father doing to afford the mortgage on the house? And how did, he get 4 bags of groceries for, $19.83. But this right here, I found this, and the title is The Cost of Inflation in 1980. And I want to play it. Let me know what you think.
One way to put today's prices in perspective is to take a look at the prices in the recent past. What we've done is we've devised a little inflation fashion show for you. In 1960, this is what a homemaker might have worn while shopping at the supermarket. For $50, her shopping cart included rib roast of beef, hamburger, pork chops, bacon, chicken, tuna fish, a ham, a turkey, all kinds of fruits and vegetables, including 1 head of lettuce, 2 loaves of bread, and 5 pounds of coffee. In 1960, you could get a house that looked like this one for about $17,000.
Oh my God. How much did everyone pay for their homes is what I'm wondering. Oh, and the interest rate too.
You might also have had a top-of-the-line Ford Thunderbird like the one in this old TV commercial for $3,700.
Oh my God.
Things changed by 1970. Remember the miniskirt. The shopping cart did not include any bacon, any ham, or a few other items, but it still had 1 head of lettuce, 2 loaves of bread, and 5 pounds of coffee. For $17,000 in 1970, you could buy about 3/4 of this new house, and the $3,700 car would not be top of the line.
I can't remember the last. I don't know. I think I bought mine first car bought new was in 07. And that was I think like 31 grand. $30,000 in 1965 your parents paid for that house. This car right here reminds me of a story of a guy in a video who was interviewed. Long story short, he worked at a soda shop, asked the owners, the wife and the husband, if he could swap out the silver coins as they were being brought in for purchases because he knew that they were real silver. Put them in a box. The box grew. Wound up putting it in his parents' basement. As he grew, went to college, became a pilot. One day he's over his parents' house. He's reading the paper, and there's this big article saying, "We'll buy all of your silver, top dollar." And then he remembers he's got the box of silver dimes, quarters, and half dollars in the basement. Finds the box, and brings it to the shop, and he winds up getting a check for I think $7,500, and ends up trading that check for a vehicle for that exact same amount.
By 1980, the change has been dramatic and traumatic. The shopping cart is a different type and has less and less. No sirloin steak, no rib roast, no pork chops, no bacon, no chicken, no ham, no turkey, and fewer staple items. Although there is 1 head of lettuce, 2 loaves of bread, and 5 pounds of coffee. This year, your $17,000 will buy only 1/4 of that house, and this year, your $3,700 will pay for only one of the least expensive cars. By 1990, this may be what you'll be wearing, but it is certain that if inflation continues at about 10% a year, that for $50, you will carry from the grocery store only 1 head of lettuce, 2 loaves of bread, and 5 pounds of coffee. Your $17,000 for a home
Nice.
will buy only a small fraction of just one room. If you could afford the entire house, it would cost about $250,000.
So this is recorded again in 1980, and they're assuming what everything will cost in 1990. What would $50 get you today if you went to the grocery store? And if you wanted to buy meat? I think a pound of beef, if you're going for the good stuff, is like $10 for like ground beef. It's funny. We actually priced it out a couple days ago when I was setting up notes for tonight, and my daughter asked me how much would $50 get. So I took up my calculator and I figured $10 for beef and the cost of taco shell seasoning, salsa, cheese, sour cream, and an avocado. I think it all came to about $40. And just the fact that visually,
Could get a house that looked like this one for about. What we've done is we've divided. In 1960, this is what a homemaker might have worn while shopping at the supermarket. For $50, her shopping cart included rib roast of beef, hamburger, pork chops, bacon, chicken, tuna fish, a ham, a turkey, all kinds of fruits and vegetables, including 1 head of lettuce, 2 loaves of bread, and 5 pounds of coffee. In 1960,
all of that for $50. That blows my mind. And then it's just funny now with the price of silver today. Let's take a look at the price real quick over SC Bullion. $74.97 is the spot price. Futures price. I'm trying to think here. Where is this? Let's go up a little bit. Yeah, we're looking at $74.97 as of right now. If you go on their website. And with the premiums, so that shopping cart of groceries and have change left over could get you this. Pound of ham, loaf of bread, pound of cheese, gallon of milk. Oh, for $50. Nice. Yeah, I can kind of see that. That's sad. Yeah, so I saw that. I thought it was interesting. And just comparing 1960, that's a shopping cart, $50 would get you today. And then inflation, printing, and everything else with the market and contracts and everything. $533 today and 11 cents. So let me get back into, there's a segment here after this that they talk about a couple of people, I think from Newsweek, about inflation. And this is back in 1980, the impacts it has on people's lives.
You know, and I think we ought to lay the groundwork for our whole discussion by asking this very simple question, and that is, you deal a lot with words and people and how they feel. What are people worried about most today? Why don't we start with you, Harry?
Well, they've got a lot to be worried about, but I think two of their primary concerns are the subject of this show, inflation, which has been eating at their paychecks and at their morale for 15 years. And joining that fear at this point is recession, which promises to be a very significant one by post-war standards.
Now, Len, you do a lot on people's lifestyles. How are people's lifestyles changing in this recession, inflationary economy? What are they doing? What do you see?
Basically, they're cutting back across the board. I mean, they are purchasing less fuel and cheaper cars. They are eating out less. They are going on fewer vacations. They are cutting out movies and theater. They are cutting down on food. They may substitute chicken and pork for steak. They may buy, instead of 6 pounds of hamburger a week, 6 pounds a month. In general, the cutbacks are across the board. They are even postponing having children because inflation is troubling them so much.
Now, what negative effect, Harry, is this having on the economy because people are cutting back?
Well, I think the most visible negative effect is unemployment. Unemployment is rising and will continue to rise. Business is cutting back. It's particularly apparent here in Pittsburgh with the steel industry.
But
You talk about cycles. This is very reminiscent of the book we talked about last year, The Diary of the Great Depression. That author, that lawyer in Ohio, talked about people not learning from the past, not learning from cycles, people panicking when things rise up in prices so quickly, they jump in and it dips just a little bit, they panic and they sell at a loss. Same thing happened then, same thing's happening right now. I mean, this was recorded back in 1980, and this is very reminiscent, if not the exact same thing that we're hearing today. Unemployment numbers going up, inflation rising, cost of everything, people cutting back on vacations and food and having to make changes and pivot, constant pivoting. Current rate of inflation is 2.68%. My contractual raise is 3%, barely covers the cost of inflation. We know that that percentage of inflation is not correct. But even working within those numbers, there's really nothing different from what they're talking about back in 1980 from what's happening right now.
All right, now with all these aspects, with people cutting back to you, Lynn. Do you find that there's more people awareness now how they can get things done for cheaper, how they can survive, how they can cope?
Oh, absolutely. I think part of it might have grown out of the do-it-yourself movement from the 60s, but there's no question that people are doing their own repairs in their home and their cars. They're making their own clothes if they have to. They are certainly far more self-reliant on what they have to do.
One of the things that a lot of people are curious about is that there are a lot of families where the husband and the wife are both working. Len, this is an area that you know about, where there are two paychecks coming in. Suddenly, either the husband or the wife is out of a job. What effect does that have in this economy on that family?
Well, it has the effect of basically cutting back on the necessities of life. I think 53% now of all married couples have two husband and wife are working. And for the first time, there are more married women working than women staying home as housewives. But their paychecks are buying are not the luxuries. They're buying the food bill. They're paying for the gas bill. And if one of them loses a job, then it's basically cutting back on the necessities, which is going to put people in a very tight pinch.
Question: how many people did you know growing up had stay-at-home moms? I only knew of one that I can remember when she mentioned how, like, with record high numbers of married women going into the workforce than staying home. I can only think of one time where I knew one family that had a stay-at-home mom. Everyone else was working. It was going to school, after school activities, and then you wait for parents to come home, you have dinner, and then just rinse and repeat.
It's basically doubling the problem of recession for any single family.
Go ahead. I might just add something. It is remarkable in terms of the statistics that are generated in Washington and all the rest, and the degree to which people are dependent upon unusual sources of income, whether it be a second income from a spouse, whether it be from overtime, whether it be from working odd jobs. The American people as a whole are saving only about 3% of their income. Much of that is just a statistical kind of saving, is pension money that is not immediately available for an emergency. In order to keep ahead of inflation, people borrowed, they spent, and they behaved in a manner that was perfectly rational on the short-term basis. But suddenly people have come to the realization that if they continue at this pace, they're not going to be able to educate the kids, they're not going to be able to pay for the big wedding, they're not going to be able to protect themselves against medical or financial emergency.
This is over 40, we're talking 45 years ago. The exact same thing happening today. A lot of people are talking about the exact same thing today. It's not being able to afford a home. The average new or first-time home buyer is now 40. You have, all you're hearing about is college debt, doubling, tripling, just continuing to rise in price, thinking that they're playing into the same cycles. Go to school, go to debt, going into college, try to get a job, and then you're paying off that debt, and then somehow you're supposed to magically get a mortgage, and then continue this perpetual cycle. That's this one-size-fits-all narrative that's not working out for everyone. And like I said before, and I've been saying this a lot lately, I love the fact that people are getting into tangible assets. Like I said, how many times have you gone to a coin shop lately or even online and you're seeing lines, more people walking in and out than usual? We went to a shop this week, and walking in, we saw people walking in, walking out, getting in the car and getting ready to back out. I see more people walking in. People are waking up and realizing their dollar's not going as far as it used to. Just like here in 1980, the exact same thing. Everything they're talking about is no different than what we're dealing with today, except the only difference is trillions, and we're talking almost $40 trillion in debt, massive inflation, unemployment not being widely talked about, but it's happening everywhere. You got the influence of AI. You have overspending, over leveraging, over borrowing, and it's not just us, it's other countries as well. So like I said, what brought you to the channel to then learn about stacking and getting into precious metals and hedging your bet against the dollar? There's an interesting couple tweets where is this thing? Back in 1963, day's wage was, no, I'm sorry, an hourly rate was, I think, $1.40. I think it was like 4 quarters. Was it 5 quarters? I think it was like 5 quarters was the hourly rate in 1963 when it was 90% silver. Today, that melt value is over $45. So it's not a minimum wage thing, it's a sound money thing. This $half right here has maintained its value just in its silver content versus our clad $half and our paper money. U.S. debt in 1980 was $855 billion. $855 billion. And look at what they're talking about in here about from 1960 to 1980, how much money you would need to spend just for a full cart of groceries with meat and other options versus what they were projecting in 1990 was, 2 loaves of bread, a head of lettuce, and 5 pounds of coffee for $50.
And they're cutting back very strongly now, and they need every penny they can get.
A New York psychotherapist recently developed something that he calls the rip-off syndrome, and he said that people in our society today are more tense and more anxious and are involved in more mental anguish, emotional problems, because
Hello.
of the state of the economy and the fact that they feel they're being ripped off by the government, by business, by all these other entities. And that's what's causing all this emotional illness in this country. In your lifestyles department at Newsweek, how do you look at something like that? Is there any truth to it?
There was an interesting study done in 75 after the last recession on the effects of unemployment on mental health. And that was quite specific because the statistics did show that there was an increase in admissions to mental hospital, alcoholism, marital discord, wife abuse, and even rape when a husband, at that point, because there were fewer two-paycheck families, was out of work. And it hasn't yet been done for inflation, but as Harry says, with the unemployment rising, we may be back in the same situation.
Not too long ago, I heard that America alone consumes 80% of the world's pharmaceuticals and highest numbers of SSRIs, especially from 1990 and on. I think we're the number one consumer of those as well.
Then we get to the bottom line. And the bottom line is, how are people going to cope?
People are behaving as rationally as they ever have. They borrowed and they spent while inflation appeared to be a problem. They're cutting back while a recession appears to be a problem, and they're contributing to the recession by cutting back. But basically, as individuals and as families, they're behaving very well. Individual good behavior, though, can be multiplied into very bad things for the national economy. And I think this is what we're seeing right now.
What we're going to do is we have a studio audience. And why don't we ask some of the members of the studio audience how they are coping with this inflationary cycle? And I think we have a pretty good cross-section. Most of the folks here are from the Pittsburgh and Washington, D.C. area. And just let me ask some of you, how are you coping with this so-called inflationary cycle? Let's have your name. Why don't we have you stand up?
I'm Eileen Joyce.
Eileen, where are you cutting back?
Well, I got rid of my car. I ride my bike everywhere I can now.
This is a motorbike or a pedal bike?
I use no credit cards. I buy no meat. And I go out kind of infrequently.
Do you think this has been a positive thing for you?
Well, it's been hard. What scares me is I don't have any savings. And I've been thinking about starting some, but right now it's too hard to do.
So is this causing you to readjust?
To worry. I mean, I support myself, and it's kind of scary.
Thank you.
Holy crap, guys. I was blown away when I first saw this one. It was a short clip. I went looking for the full-length version. This is, again, the title of it's called The Cost of Inflation in 1980. A cover story featuring David Horowitz. And the channel name is Watch Fight Back. This is 1980. This is very reminiscent of people, what they're doing today. You have, adult children moving back home. You have people with not any savings, paying off their student loans and credit card debt at all-time highs. I think, I gotta look this up again, but I heard it was late last year, it was over $1 trillion just in credit card debt. So all of that compiled with, everything that's going on right now, everything that's going on with inflation and everything that's happening internationally when it comes to the new thing is Venezuela. You're looking at, some people are talking about oil, some people are talking about silver. I don't think we have the full picture, but I just find it interesting that Biden put out a bounty on Maduro's head for $25 million just a few years ago, and then it got doubled to $50 million. And some people are speculating, is it about silver? Is it about oil? I think it's going to be bigger. I think there's some other factors. I just find it coincidentally funny that Milikowski was in D.C. for, a week? And his last day, the raid happens. So again, you can speculate and assume and have your best guesses. I don't know. But either way, even something that's 90% will maintain its spending value when it comes to purchasing power. even, I had to dig these out for you guys. Hold on. Grams. Just some grams of gold. Depending on where you go and the premiums that you're going to pay, if you're on a budget, you have options for grams of gold. If you look online at certain auctions, you have options to just park your money, again, not financial advice, which is something that I chose to do personally, into something that's going to hedge your bet and protect your purchasing power. So a lot of people worry, I'm on a budget, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to buy or focus on. Like I said before, we talked about this. A lot of you were fantastic when it came to offering advice, starting small. This right here is 3 grams of silver. See, we got generic rounds. You have a round right here from a private mint. And then you have, here we go, a Britannia, which is government backed with a dollar amount. So you have rounds and you have coins. This is going to be a few dollars cheaper depending on where you go. Then again, today with premiums being low as they are, you might do well with those. Like with eagles, back in the past, you had proof eagles that would cost a little bit more than a regular eagle. Now they're about the same page. So if you can, once a week, set a budget. Whatever your budget may be, it could be for 90% to start off, but you have silver. This is going to protect your purchasing wealth and give yourself a hedge in the future. And then as you scale up, depending on if you're going to start with rounds and then coins, 90%, you can scale starting off with a gram of gold. Or heck, God, I mean, the premiums are high, but you can even do, if you had to, gold backs from Orem. This is 24 karat, this is 1/1000. So you can start this small and then just keep scaling up from there. You absolutely have options. Face value, 0.715 times price of silver equals the value. Absolutely. And that's only going up. You got more options. Come up with a plan. Come up with the why you want to buy metal and how it's going to protect your purchasing value. When I first got into this because of my family, it was $14 an ounce. And you can get your family on board. When my daughter started losing her teeth, the tooth fairy would show up and put silver rounds underneath her pillow. You can get friends and family on board. Libertads will definitely hold their premium. This is 1983. Those are my favorites. Oh, that and the Prospectors. They only made 6 of these from Engelhard. And then you can start specializing in limited edition stuff, or limited run items like the Prospector or trade dollars. You can really diversify, but the great thing is no matter what you buy in the lines of that, you're buying precious metals. You're buying silver and gold. I mean, you can get real small. I'm trying to find some smaller pieces here that I dug out. This is, what is that? 1/1000th. So again, you can use these for birthday presents. If you want to get friends and family in on stacking and they've never done this before, this is a great conversation starter. Buy something cute like for a grandkid or a niece or your own kids. And they'll say, hey, cool, Snoopy. But then you tell them, hey, this is silver. You tell them about gold and silver. You can have fun with it, like with a character on top. And they'll think, okay, this is cool. You can't spend it right away like you could cash, for example, but you hang on to it and you can teach them the value of this. And as they get older, or you could buy it for them early on. And as they get older, you can say, hey, I've been buying one of these for you every year. And now it's your turn to keep going, keep stacking. And then at that point, since you've had these conversations and maybe you've gone to coin shows together or coin shops, you guys can start shopping together, start stacking together. But there are absolutely options. And as they get jobs or start babysitting, they can take that and then go in for bigger pieces. And then that's how you scale up and grow. And not just that, but instead of holding cash in the bank with the purchasing value going down and down and down, because it's worth less and less and less, these maintain their value. So again, you absolutely have options. You can help out one another, shop together as friends and family, go to shops. I mean, even watch videos together and come up with ideas. You can get creative. You can actually come up with scenarios as to why are you stacking? What are you stacking for? Maybe start getting into purchasing a half a cow. You got to be creative when it comes to your future, and not just your future, but what are you getting ready for? It's, again, think of if someone gets laid off in the future, what is a power outage? How would you protect yourselves? Every economic cycle that has come and gone before has come and gone, and then what's going to replace this one? Your guess is as good as mine. Let's come up with a poll question. Did you buy on the dip? All right, I'm gonna ask you guys questions. Did you guys buy on the dip when it went down a little bit? And then I think the next question is gonna be, what do you see the market doing tomorrow when it opens up here? Like I said earlier, we did go to the coin shop on Friday. It was Friday morning. And the only time I've seen it that busy was in April when people are dealing with their taxes. Selling, trying to pay their tax bills. It was a lot of coming and going, but it seemed like a lot of regulars. Some guy would walk in and our guy would say, yeah, 2 eagles, and he whips out, his money and goes over, grabs the eagles and walks right out. We ask, buy some silver, we finish. On the way out, getting in the car, we see another guy walking in. It's just like a steady stream of people coming and going to buy. Market's up already $2. All right, let's check SC Bullion. They are 75.13. Gold is up $48, 43.87, and platinum is up $100. It's 22.51 right now. Yeah, there's you know what the trick is? Just steady. You gotta make it steady. If you're consistent with your goals, you will do better than waiting for. A lot of people say, "Oh, I'm waiting for the dip," or "I'm waiting for this." That's not gonna happen. You gotta be careful. You gotta have a plan and be consistent. If you're doing that, then you're gonna do just fine. I remember getting these for, I think, $28. I want to say a year and a half ago. This is a quarter of a gram. And for perspective, this is a gram. So if prices were to go up because things aren't correcting, that could probably cover a 1960s cart of groceries, as crazy as it sounds. So again, the plan. When we talk about having a plan, what brings you into getting into metals, the why, and then having a plan, where are you going to start? If you're in it for the long run, as I hope a lot of people are, rounds, and then maybe coins, eagles, something that will hedge your premium. Start small. Again, the smaller the pieces, the bigger the premium. So, like I said, if you shop often, dollar cost averaging, you're going to be in a good spot. You're going to be in a great spot. Maybe do quarter grams if that's all you can afford. Start there. Scale up to grams. You can do a quarter ounce. Save a little extra money on the premium. I mean, there are absolute options out there. In fact, you can even do... I don't have many because everything else is like out of state. You could do premium. You could do pre-33 gold. Premiums are very low on these. In fact, if you want to get into gold affordably, pre-33. These are great pieces to have. So again, you can truly diversify. You can start small and then scale up, but just start somewhere. Start with 90%. Get yourself some dimes, some 90% quarters, 1964 and older, and then build up from there. Create some tubes, fill those up, and then go to rounds. Fill up a tube of 20, scale up again. Start with some small pieces of gold. Maybe you can diversify if you have certain, like a couple $100, maybe quarter gram of gold, around quarter gram on Atmex. Atmex, yeah, it's $35. You can probably do better at local coin shops when it comes to premiums, give or take, especially with shipping and taxes. If you're going to buy online, make it worth it. Don't just buy a piece here and there. The taxes and the shipping are just going to hammer you. But if you are going to buy online, at least buy some volume. That will help you out, saving some money. Check out some auctions, get educated first, know what you're going to buy. And then in the future, God, if things get weird, you could take 1,000th of some gold, which is not too much, but enough to get you something decent. That'll help you out. Versus if you gave them like a gram of gold and then overpay on something. You have 1/20th silver, which is another great option. Again, diversify. Have small pieces, have big pieces. You'll never go wrong with ounces of silver. This is how I got into this years ago, when it was $14 an ounce. And then just a little bit here and there. And the cool thing is, you can hang on to it, or you can let it grow in value and then reinvest that into something else. Like what I did was I took some tubes of silver when it was $28 and change and changed it into a harvest rate freeze dryer. And that thing's more than paid for itself already. So again, you can be real creative. You can ask mechanics, for example, if they will accept silver for payment and gold. We asked ours last year and he said, yeah. In fact, he's already done that before with another lady who came in. And he's like, yeah, it's real money. So it doesn't hurt to ask. In fact, we have a farmer who sells his own beef and chicken eggs and cheese, and he accepts goldbacks. He accepts silver for payment. So it's gaining momentum. The fact that regular people, are starting to swarm into auctions and coin shops and asking, I want to buy silver. I've never done this before. Where do I start? And hopefully you'll get a good shop owner say, all right, what's your plan? Why are you stacking? And then probably suggest starting off with silver rounds, depending on what your budget is and what your plan is. And if that's a good one, stick with them and keep asking them questions. And hopefully they'll guide you in the right direction. And then as you're stacking along and following along with other people, you'll start to fine tune that plan and adapt and pivot, as things move along, as markets tighten, as, the gold to silver ratio tightens. You might play the ratio, you might turn in some gold for silver, and then if it tightens, silver back into gold. Like right now in SC Bullion, it says historic silver price action will cause processing and shipping delays. We appreciate your patience. All right, let's go to Kiko, because that's more accurate for prices and information with the market right now. It's 7:30, so we should have other markets online. All right, gold is up 62.40. Silver's up 255. It's 75.44 right now for the ask. Again, not financial advice, but just something good to know and be aware of. All right, so let's check the poll real quick. What do we got here? 50-50. Did you guys buy in the dip? I did. And the funny thing is, even when the market's up, I'm still buying. If it's down, buy a little extra. All right, let's send the poll. Let's start one more. Yeah, and shop around for prices. Even though Atmex has a quarter gram for $35.41, shop around. At least check out 2 or 3 other places, and then shop locally if you can. If you have one locally, you're in a great place, because there are people who drive hours just to get to a coin shop. Let's see here. And prices, inflation. Yeah, that video is very interesting from 1980. Exact same thing. Everything they talked about is the exact same thing happening today, except, again, the only difference was the trillions of dollars in debt. 20 minutes. Okay. That's going to be interesting. Did you guys see the TikTok videos coming out of people swarming shops all over China and Shanghai. And I think, I remember what channel showed it. Was it SD Bullion? Someone showed a video. I think it was SD Bullion on YouTube. These massive, like rectangle bricks of silver on the streets with wax pencils, selling to people just out in the open on the streets. Not even the sidewalks. They're just out on the streets, selling these massive pieces of silver. Again, the contract prices versus the physical, there's such a gap. I think a lot of things are coming to a head right now, especially with the shortages coming to another year of a deficit of silver, and the fact that people and businesses are going straight to the mines and they'll invest millions of dollars, so they have first right of refusal. Just like Samsung, just like Elon Musk, just like China. A lot of Chinese execs were over in Mexico investing millions of dollars in mines. And it's going to be at a bare minimum 5 years before they see any recoup on their investment. Weekly update last night. Yeah, okay. Inflation. What else are you guys stacking besides metal? I'm thinking like DIY when it comes to supplies. Ooh, you know what? Skills. There's a great one. Besides metals, I mean, these are great and tangible. You can hold them. But are you investing in yourself? A lot of people, I don't hear a lot of people talking about, they talk about great things, food, supplies, medical supplies, and so on. But do you take these things out and practice and use them? Like, for example, hand grinding for grinding your own wheat. Are you buying bags of wheat berries, putting them away, but are you actually processing that and practicing that? Knowing what it's like to rise, how fine you want that grind, for example. How to start fire, different ways to start fire. Think about hypotheticals, just like metals. Like if, say, there's a power outage or something crazy happens, like that movie Homestead, and you had to buy supplies or services with metal, how much do you think this value for a service or food or a supply or tool, for example, are you willing to pay for it? How would you guys practice bartering for that? You have that, skills. I want to say maybe, I think we talked about this 6 months ago or more, how there's a shortage of tradesmen. There's a podcast I was listening to out of Boston, and I think the guy was a plumber or electrician, but he talked about the need for tradesmen. He said for every 5 that retire, only 1 replaces them. And now that number is up to 7. So every 7 that retire, only 1's replacing them. And we are already in that deficit when it comes to plumbers, electricians, tradesmen, carpenters, mechanics. So I think the messaging has been wrong for decades. People talk about, no, go to college, get a degree in this and that, go into debt. But how many people do you know, like welders, for example, who make up their own hours and are doing fantastic and they're not in debt? Are people taking the time to, if they know they're stuck, what would you do? Would you go back to school or learn a trade and then be really diversified? Don't be diversified in metal. I mean, gold, silver is fantastic, but are you diversified in your own skills, in yourself, and your ability to provide, not just in a tangible way like this, but with your hands? Oh man, there's a really pretty copper piece I have. It's dirty hands, clean money. It's got, like tradesman. It's got like a wrench and, tools behind him. And it says dirty hands on one side, but clean money on the other, because it was copper, and it talks about silver and gold. Tangible assets. So when we talk about being diversified and having a plan, have a plan to protect yourself financially in your future. But if you have meds that you need in case there's another shortage, like things happened 5 years ago, could you get extra of those? Could you get extra supplements? In fact, there are auctions where people are selling, not just metals and supplies and books and things, but also supplements. You can stock up on those. You can stock up on bulk items like rice and beans and lentils and other foods. And if you can take some of your metal and diversify into a freeze dryer, make your own meals, freeze dry them, put them in Mylar, send them away. So again, if God forbid something happens in the family where someone loses their job and you have like a window between then and when you get another job, you guys can stay afloat comfortably, have less stress because you have assets put aside, not just metal for bills, for example, but food and supplies, extra medication, extra supplements. This is really no different than what people did during the Great Depression. And then you hear the stories after, like from the 1950s and on, grandparents saving everything because they lived through those challenging times, not just during the war, but during the Great Depression and then during and then after. Not a lot of people had their money in banks. A lot of people jokingly had their, what we thought was funny, but for them it was serious. They had their own cash underneath their mattress. That was where a lot of that originated from. World War II, during the Great Depression and on, people would not trust banks. They would actually have their own cash or coins like this. When Roosevelt said, okay, you can't have gold anymore, you're limited to, I think, 5 ounces, unless you were a jeweler or some special tradesman, you couldn't own more than 5 ounces of this stuff. And then you hear stories of people hiding it in the backyards or burying it in their walls in their homes just to protect their families. And then as they got older, they would bring in their children and say, listen, if anything happens, I have this, take care of your grandma or your family or whatever the case may be. They knew for thousands of years, 6,000 plus years, of the value of this gold, silver, bigger purchases, smaller purchases, but it was the value of it. Again, diversify, have small pieces, have big pieces. Start small and then just scale up. But just be consistent. Have a plan, have goals, update them from time to time. You could take lots of pieces and then convert it into a bigger piece. Get your friends and family involved. Talk to them, say, hey, what are you doing? You noticing this price is going up? You noticing all this craziness going on and affordability? I mean, there's a story of someone had, I don't have one, but they had a double eagle $20 gold piece. It was a full ounce of gold. You could buy a custom suit back in the day, and the same thing you can do that today. Get a fine suit with that. So again, the value of precious metals hasn't changed. It's just the spending value of the dollar has gone down. This will maintain itself. Even in crazy markets, there'll always be its true intrinsic value when it comes to metal. Again, just be diversified. What we got here? Worked for a general contractor when I was in college. Best education ever. Framing, plumbing, electrical, drywall. Followed the subs around and picked up a variety of skills. I mean, there you go. I mean, look how many people are reliant upon everyone else doing everything for them. We're reliant on the internet. If the power goes out, people lose their minds because they don't have, access to do this on their phone all the time. When we moved here, I think a year into it, we had a hurricane come up the coast, and we didn't have power for a week. And we were reliant upon hooking up a hose to the well. And then not long after that, we got a well pump, one of the best investments here. So now we could pump our own water in case anything happens. Again, be creative. Ask yourself the hypothetical questions. What if I lose power? What if I lose my job? What if fill in the blank happens? How would you protect yourself? A lot of people are taking their cash out of the bank and putting into tangible assets. And not just tangible assets, but food. We talked about that a few weeks ago during a live. Skills. That one's not being talked about enough. This year, our family's going to learn how to weld. We're taking a welding class. We found a guy a few towns over. He's going to teach us how to weld and melt metal together and maybe fix our own tools, maybe create our own tools. That's a great skill. And the great thing about welding, you have your own kit and travel if you had to, if you wanted to. If you want to supplement your income, learn a new skill, be your own contractor, set your own hours, and supplement. In fact, if you want to be really creative, take whatever money you earn from that and put it into something tangible like metals. And then just keep building up from there. And maybe be good enough where you can quit your job and then be your own contractor. But again, it's just one of those what ifs. Play around these ideas, look at your plan, adapt, pivot, and then just keep adjusting. Instead of just sitting on and being stagnant, be creative. Like the ratio, for example, you can play the ratio. A lot of people have talked about over the years playing the ratio. When the ratio widens, they go in on silver, and when it tightens, they start flipping gold for silver when it's big, and then when it tightens, you just trade that silver back into gold and actually get gold, but then actually hold on to some of that extra silver. So that's how they accumulate, quote, free metal over time. I've only played the ratio once, last April when it was 104, and doing great. I haven't traded anything yet, but again, it's just one of those, you look back on the numbers now and you're doing fantastic, but just be consistent with your goals. Do something. If it's just you, fantastic. If it's a family, try to get the whole family on board. In fact, maybe get the kids to cut the grass and pay them in silver or, I don't know, fractions of gold or gold backs. Maybe some 90%. Teach them, the value of 90%. So if they ever get changed, they can start checking dates like our daughter does now. There's a lot of versatility with these things, and not just like challenging times that we watched about in that video, people being creative, but you can actually make it better yourself and actually, dare I say, enjoy it, because now you're saying, okay, challenge accepted. How can I get through these challenging times and be happy? It's just worrying about being stressed out. Look, stress is easy. That you could turn on a TV and it's everywhere. Find the silver lining, pun intended, and be creative with it. Read some books, learn about the history, see how people got through these challenging times, not just financially, but through trades and skills. I mean, some companies thrived and actually grew during the Great Depression, like Frito-Lay. They had affordable small bags of fried food, like chips, and they did phenomenal. Kraft macaroni and cheese, that was a Great Depression era food that blew up. It was phenomenal. It was affordable. It was fast and easy. They did tremendous. So it depends on how creative you want to get with these things. So be your own problem solver. It's like being your own bank, be your own problem solver. You can do it by yourself. You can get friends and family involved, have a great conversation starter, and really strengthen those bonds. So God forbid anything happens, you know who to count on because you've had those conversations, you strategized, you went coin shopping together, maybe learned some trades together and had fun, and build on those relationships and strengthen them. So if there's challenging times ahead of you, you can work together. Let's see here. That 1964 candy half is worth $26.88. You know what's funny? This one I kept in this plastic one. I could have put it in a tube. I kept in here because there's a funny story behind this one. There's a show called Below Zero, and I think his name was Cody. He started streaming on Whatnot, and he had a friend of his, this lady who broke her leg. She was just hanging out, and he's like, "What else we got to sell?" She goes, "Hey, I'll run my $50." So I swipe on it. No one else swipes, and I said, "I'm gonna keep it because that was a funny story." Because she said it was her lucky $50. So for right now, I have it in here. It's a funny conversation starter, but this came from Alaska. I kept it in here. It was her lucky one, so I'm going to keep it and see what that brings. So there's that. But again, just have the conversation, talk to people, be creative, be consistent. I think for a lot of people, that's the hard part. It's taking the first step into the unknown. Like, how do I get started in this? And then being consistent with those efforts. Anyone can try it once and then say, okay, well, I tried it, it didn't work out. But just be consistent. Watch videos, learn from the past. I mean, some great information is World War II in England. There was an island nation, and they had to really make do with what they had then. So that's, you talk about the pioneering, spirit to, make it every day under the stress of bombs and kids being sent out to the country because dad's off at war and, cities are under threat. So everyone's just, separated. Great Depression. People traveling, men, husbands, traveling on train, looking for work and jobs. Moms at home with the kids, trying to, make ends meet and be creative. So you can learn from the past to get ready for the future and just be that much wiser and stronger, and maybe be an asset to those in the future who are lost. And you can say, hey, let's work together and try this. So actually, now's a good time to actually work together. Skills. Okay, so we got one vote for skills. I say get diversified just like this. Metals, food, supplies, hand grinding for wheat. If you love bread and baked goods, storing flour will last you a few years. If you store wheat berries, cool, dark, dry location, many, 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 many years, and you can grind it fresh and actually have it be, that much more nutrient rich. Paper plates, for example, like if you're going camping, that's what we call it, camping. So you don't have to worry about, cleaning dishes, just being creative. Again, you can get the conversation rolling with your family, friends, maybe depending on, the situation, but it's a great conversation starter, just being creative, saying, hey, just start off with what if, and just kind of see where that conversation goes. But again, things are happening. It just feels a little faster and faster. Like the metals last year, we started off at under $30 and we closed the year just over 70. So it goes to show you anything can happen. Geopolitically, even here at home, just protect yourself. That's like the biggest thing. I've learned that, God, for like the last over a decade now, stacking and learning skills and just having conversation with people and finding videos like this one that we just watched. The cost of inflation back in 1980, the exact same thing and the problems and issues they had back then, we're facing with right now. So you think at some point we would learn, but then again, with all the distractions everywhere, it's almost like it's by design. But if you can just break away for a moment and just take, I have pads in every room. I have these things everywhere. Take a pad, take a pen, and just write down like what if, what are your plans, what are your goals, and just get ready that way. Again, if you guys have any ideas for topics we could talk about in the future, put them in the comments section. I'll read them. I'll make some notes. We can talk about it later on. That's like the best we can help out one another. I don't have all the answers, but doing this long enough where we're doing pretty good. There's always room for improvement. Again, skills. We're going to learn how to weld this year. I'm really excited. I want to make trivets for camping so you could put pots and pans down by a fire and protect your equipment. I want to learn how to fix, tools and anything that may break in the future. That'd be fun. Again, it's being creative. It's supporting one another. In fact, this year at PorkFest, I traded this piece, a kid that was learning how to blacksmith there. Look at this. You could trade. Instead of just, paying cash or something, you can transact with trades. So I'm using this as a plant hook. The kid learned how to bend and twist metal. I was like, that's fantastic. Blacksmithing, welding, things are dirty. But it's fun. It's working with your hands and being creative and being your own problem solver. So be creative, find solutions, help out one another, work together. Just start off with, hey, what if? I think it's very simple. So it's like the Socratic method of why. It gets down to the why. Be creative with it. Write down ideas. And if you have any topics, anything you want to discuss in the future, I'm open to it. Write it down below in the comments section. And I'd love to hear from you guys and see what you guys are doing. There may be some topics that I haven't thought about and love to discuss and maybe learn more about. So if you guys like the show, like, share, subscribe. We'll see you again next Sunday at 7 p.m. But give me some ideas down below in the comments section,